What if I told you that one of the richest countries on earth collapsed into decades of economic chaos? A nation where inflation once topped 280%. Millions abandoned their own currency, yet people still fill cafes at midnight, celebrate life, and dream big. This is the unbelievable story of Argentina, a country of spectacular beauty, extraordinary resilience, and one of history's most dramatic economic rises and falls. Argentina, from the world's richest country to economic crisis. At the dawn of the 20th century, Argentina looked like a future global superpower. Around 1910, its income per person ranked among the world's highest, ahead of France and Germany in some historical estimates. This rise was powered by the fertile pampas, where wheat and cattle were produced on a massive scale. Refrigerated ships carried Argentine beef to Europe, while railroads moved grain to Atlantic ports. Buenos Aires became the glittering symbol of this prosperity. Grand boulevards, theaters, mansions, and public buildings gave the capital a European appearance, earning it the nickname, the Paris of South America. Opportunity also drew millions across the Atlantic. Between 1830 and 1950, an estimated 8.2 million European immigrants arrived, especially from Italy and Spain, reshaping the country's food, language, architecture, and identity. Many believed Argentina could develop alongside the United States, Canada, or Australia. Yet political instability, repeated policy shifts, debt crises, and chronic inflation weakened that promise. The contrast remains striking. Argentina still has world-class farmland, major energy resources, and a highly urbanized population. But its economy has endured dramatic cycles of boom and collapse. After growing about 4.4% in 2025, the World Bank expects expansion to continue in 2026, showing that Argentina's story is far from over. The origins of the economic crisis. Argentina's decline did not happen overnight. Instead, it unfolded over decades through a combination of political instability, inconsistent economic policies, and repeated financial crises. Since the 1930s, governments with very different ideologies often reversed the policies of their predecessors, making long-term planning difficult for businesses and investors. A major turning point came with President Juan Perón, who took office in 1946. His political movement, known as Peronism, expanded workers' rights, increased wages, strengthened labor unions, and dramatically enlarged the role of the state in the economy. While these policies improved living standards for many Argentines in the short term, they also increased public spending and made the government responsible for financing a growing number of social programs. Over time, government expenditures frequently exceeded tax revenues, creating persistent budget deficits. To cover these gaps, successive administrations relied on borrowing or, in some periods, expanding the money supply. Public debt grew, confidence weakened, and inflation became a recurring challenge. At the same time, price controls, currency restrictions, and subsidies were often introduced to ease economic pressure. Although these measures sometimes provided temporary relief, they also created market distortions and discouraged private investment. The result was a pattern that repeated itself for decades. Economic growth followed by recession, debt restructuring, inflation, and another attempt at reform. Since the country's historic sovereign default in 2001, the largest in the world at that time, Argentina has continued to experience cycles of recovery and crisis. This long history helps explain why rebuilding confidence has become one of the nation's greatest economic challenges. Decades of inflation and the collapse of trust in the Argentine peso. For many Argentines, inflation is more than an economic statistic. It has become a way of life. For years, the price of groceries, fuel, rent, and everyday essentials could change within days. sometimes even within hours during the worst periods. At its peak in early 2024, Argentina's annual inflation rate exceeded 280%, making it one of the highest in the world. Families often rushed to spend their salaries as soon as they were paid, knowing that waiting even a few weeks could significantly reduce their purchasing power. As confidence in the Argentine peso eroded, people searched for safer ways to protect their savings. The US dollar gradually became the preferred store of value, with many Argentines buying dollars whenever possible instead of holding pesos. This demand eventually gave rise to two exchange rates: the official government rate and an unofficial market rate commonly known as the blue dollar. The gap between these rates sometimes exceeded 100%, creating a unique parallel currency market that became part of everyday life. For decades, many Argentines have avoided keeping large amounts of pesos for long periods. Instead, they convert money into dollars, real estate, or other assets they believe will better preserve value. Although inflation has fallen sharply since the economic reforms introduced in late 2023, with monthly inflation dropping to single-digit levels and annual inflation continuing to decline through 2025, the psychological scars remain. Rebuilding trust in the national currency may prove even more difficult than reducing inflation itself, because confidence, once lost, often takes years to recover. Javier Milei's economic shock therapy. When Javier Milei took office in December 2023, he promised to break Argentina's cycle of deficits, money printing, and inflation. His government launched an aggressive austerity program, cutting public spending, reducing subsidies, freezing many infrastructure projects, and eliminating or merging government departments. The objective was simple but painful. The state could no longer spend more than it collected. The strategy produced significant results. Argentina recorded its first annual fiscal surplus in more than a decade, while inflation fell dramatically from its 2024 peak of nearly 300%. The government also stopped relying heavily on the central bank to finance budget deficits, helping slow the creation of new pesos. In April 2025, most currency and capital controls were lifted. The peso was allowed to move within a managed exchange rate band, narrowing the gap between the official dollar and the informal blue dollar. Supporters argued that these reforms restored confidence, attracted investment, and made Argentina's economy more transparent. However, the adjustment came with serious social costs. Reduced subsidies initially increased transportation and utility bills, while public sector layoffs and spending cuts affected many households. The economy contracted in 2024 before rebounding by 4.4% in 2025. Growth is projected to continue in 2026, but inflation, poverty, foreign reserves, employment, and political resistance remain major challenges. Milei's experiment has changed Argentina's direction, but whether the recovery can become stable and widely shared is still an open question. Argentina's culture of living life to the fullest. Despite decades of inflation, political uncertainty, and economic hardship, Argentines are known for protecting something money cannot easily measure: time with the people they love. Life is not organized only around work or financial success. It is also built around long conversations, shared meals, friendship, music, and the belief that the present moment should not be wasted. Family and social relationships remain central to everyday life. Weekend gatherings may last for hours, while dinner often begins much later than visitors expect. In Buenos Aires, it is normal for restaurants to become busy around 9 or 10 p.m., with conversations continuing well past midnight. People meet in traditional cafes, neighborhood bars, public parks, and plazas, turning ordinary spaces into centers of community life. This social rhythm becomes even more visible after dark. Buenos Aires has one of Latin America's most energetic nightlife scenes, with tango halls, theaters, live music venues, restaurants, and clubs operating deep into the night. Cities such as Cordoba, Rosario, and Mendoza also have active evening cultures shaped by students, music, food, and local traditions. This does not mean Argentines ignore their problems. Rather, many have learned to live alongside uncertainty without allowing it to completely control their lives. Their optimism is not always loud or effortless. It often appears in humor, hospitality, and the determination to keep gathering, celebrating, and supporting one another. In Argentina, enjoying life is not simply entertainment. It can also be a form of resilience. Asado, barbecue, family, and the heart of Argentine community. In Argentina, an asado is far more than grilled meat. It is a social ritual built around patience, conversation, and the simple act of bringing people together. On weekends and holidays, families and friends gather around the parrilla or grill while the smell of wood smoke and slow cooking beef fills the air. The meal may take hours, but that is exactly the point. No one is supposed to rush. At the center of the event is the asador, the person responsible for managing the fire and cooking the meat. This role is often treated with respect because a successful asado depends on timing, experience, and careful control of the heat. The menu may include ribs, sausages, short ribs, flank steak, and other cuts, usually seasoned simply with salt, so the flavor of the meat remains the focus. Beef holds a special place in Argentine identity. The country's vast pampas helped create one of the world's most famous cattle traditions, and meat has long been connected to rural life, national pride, and family gatherings. Yet the true meaning of asado is not found only on the plate. People share stories, debate soccer, discuss politics, and reconnect across generations. Children play nearby while adults sit around the table long after the food is served. In this sense, asado represents something deeply Argentine, the belief that a meal becomes meaningful when it is shared. It is not simply dinner. It is community, memory, and belonging gathered around a fire. Buenos Aires, the European-style capital of South America. Buenos Aires can feel surprisingly familiar to visitors arriving from Europe. Its broad avenues, ornate apartment buildings, domed palaces, and tree-lined streets reflect strong French, Italian, and Spanish influences. During Argentina's economic boom in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, wealthy families and government leaders hired European architects to transform the capital into a symbol of national ambition. That legacy is why Buenos Aires is still often called the Paris of South America. Yet the city is not defined by one architectural style. Recoleta is known for elegant mansions, museums, and its famous cemetery. Palermo combines historic homes with parks, restaurants, design studios, and nightlife. San Telmo preserves cobblestone streets, antique markets, and colonial-era buildings, while La Boca stands out for its brightly painted houses and deep connection to immigration, art, and soccer. Cafe culture is another essential part of the city's identity. Historic cafes have long served as meeting places for writers, musicians, politicians, students, and neighbors. People may spend hours over a single coffee, reading the newspaper, or debating the issues of the day. Buenos Aires is also one of Latin America's great cultural capitals. The Teatro Colón is internationally respected for opera, ballet, and classical music, while the city's museums, independent theaters, bookstores, galleries, and tango venues support an active artistic life. Buenos Aires may resemble Europe at first glance, but its energy, contradictions, and creativity are unmistakably Argentine. Tango. the dance born in working-class neighborhoods. Tango did not begin in royal ballrooms or elite theaters. It emerged during the late 19th century in the crowded working-class neighborhoods of Buenos Aires, Montevideo, and the wider Rio de la Plata region. These port cities were filled with European immigrants, Afro-Argentine communities, sailors, and rural workers searching for opportunity. Their music, rhythms, languages, and experiences blended together to create something entirely new. Tango combines music, dance, poetry, and intense emotion. Its early lyrics often told stories of migration, loneliness, lost love, poverty, and life in rapidly changing cities. The dance itself is built around connection and improvisation. Rather than following a fixed routine, two dancers communicate through balance, posture, pauses, and subtle movements. At first, tango was associated mainly with working-class districts and was sometimes rejected by Argentina's upper classes. But after becoming fashionable in Paris during the early 20th century, it returned home with greater social prestige. It eventually developed into one of Argentina's most recognizable cultural symbols. Today, visitors can see polished tango performances in theaters and on the streets of San Telmo and La Boca. However, the tradition remains most authentic inside the city's milongas, the social dance halls where local dancers gather late into the night. In 2009, UNESCO recognized tango as part of humanity's intangible cultural heritage. More than a performance, tango is Argentina's history expressed through music and movement. Life and safety in Argentina's major cities. Daily life in Argentina's largest cities moves at a fast but highly social pace. Buenos Aires is filled with commuters, students, office workers, street performers, cafes, and restaurants that remain active well into the evening. Public transportation is central to this rhythm. Residents use buses, commuter trains, and the Subte Buenos Aires subway system, which connects many major avenues, stations, and central neighborhoods. Travelers generally need a rechargeable Sube card to use the network. Popular areas such as Palermo, Recoleta, San Telmo, La Boca, and the city center can become especially crowded. Their energy is part of the attraction, but crowded streets, markets, trains, and tourist sites also create opportunities for pickpocketing and phone theft. Visitors should keep wallets and passports secure, avoid leaving phones on cafe tables, and pay attention when using public transportation or walking through busy areas. British travel guidance similarly advises awareness of street crime and changing local conditions. Still, it would be misleading to describe Argentina as uniformly dangerous. Safety varies significantly by neighborhood, city, time of day, and individual behavior. Millions of residents go about their daily routines without incident, and most visitors experience the country without serious problems. The most balanced approach is not fear, but preparation. Learn about the area. Use official transportation. Avoid displaying valuables, and follow local advice. Argentina's cities remain lively and welcoming, but like any major urban destination, they reward travelers who stay alert. The people of Argentina and their diverse origins. Argentina's national identity was shaped by one of the largest immigration waves in modern history. From the late 19th century through the early 20th century, millions of Europeans arrived in search of work, land, and a new beginning. Italians and Spaniards formed the largest groups, leaving a lasting influence on the country's language, food, architecture, family traditions, and everyday behavior. Argentina also received immigrants from Germany, France, Eastern Europe, and the Middle East. Large Jewish, Syrian and Lebanese communities became part of the country's commercial and cultural life. Their influence can still be seen in neighborhoods, religious institutions, festivals, businesses, and regional cuisine. However, Argentina's story did not begin with European immigration. Indigenous peoples, including the Mapuche, Guarani, Com, Huichi, and many other communities, remain an essential part of the nation. Their languages, traditions, and knowledge continue to shape life, especially in the North, Northwest, and Patagonia. Afro-Argentine heritage has also played an important historical role, although it was often overlooked in older national narratives. This mixture created a society with a strong but complex identity. Argentines are often expressive, direct, and emotionally engaged in conversation. Friendly arguments about politics, soccer, or culture can sound intense to outsiders, yet may simply reflect passion rather than hostility. Many Argentines take deep pride in their country's history, literature, music, food, landscapes, and sporting achievements. Argentina is not the product of one single culture. It is a constantly evolving blend of migration, indigenous heritage, regional traditions, and shared national memory. The Mediterranean influence on Argentine life. Many visitors are surprised by how Mediterranean Argentina can feel, especially in Buenos Aires and other major cities. This influence comes largely from generations of Italian and Spanish immigration, which reshaped the country's food, social habits, language, and family life. One of the clearest examples is the daily schedule. Dinner often begins around 9 or 10 p.m., and restaurants may stay busy until midnight or later. Meals are rarely treated as something to finish quickly. They are opportunities to talk, debate, laugh, and spend time together. Cafe culture follows the same rhythm. People may sit for an hour over a small coffee, reading, working, or discussing politics and soccer with friends. Historic cafes remain important social spaces where time seems to move more slowly than it does outside. Italian influence is especially visible in Argentine cuisine. Pizza is often thick, rich, and covered with generous amounts of cheese. Pasta is a common family meal, while gelato shops can be found throughout the country. Pastries, including medialunas, are often enjoyed with coffee in the morning or afternoon. Even communication can feel distinctly Mediterranean. Argentines frequently speak with expressive hand gestures, changing tones, and visible emotion. Conversations may sound intense, but this usually reflects enthusiasm rather than conflict. Behind these habits is a strong belief in family and community. Shared meals, regular gatherings, and close relationships remain central to everyday life. Argentina may be located in South America, but much of its social rhythm carries the warmth and energy of the Mediterranean. The cost of living in Argentina. Is $2,000 a month really luxury? One of the biggest misconceptions about Argentina is that $2,000 a month guarantees a luxurious lifestyle. The reality is far more nuanced. Thanks to recent economic stabilization, Argentina is no longer the bargain destination it once appeared to be during periods of extreme currency volatility. The cost of living depends heavily on where you live, your lifestyle, and ongoing changes in inflation and exchange rates. In Buenos Aires, a monthly budget of $1,500 to $2,000 can provide a comfortable standard of living for a single person. This may include renting a modern one-bedroom apartment in a desirable neighborhood, dining out regularly, using public transportation, and enjoying entertainment. However, premium districts such as Palermo, Recoleta, or Puerto Madero are significantly more expensive than suburban areas or smaller cities like Cordoba, Rosario, or Mendoza. where housing costs are generally lower. Everyday expenses also vary. Argentina has an extensive and affordable public transportation system, while groceries, restaurants, and leisure activities can fluctuate in price as inflation continues to ease, but has not completely disappeared. Exchange rate movements may also affect the purchasing power of foreign visitors. It is important to distinguish between the experience of tourists earning foreign currency and that of local residents paid in Argentine pesos. A salary that seems generous to a visitor may be far beyond the reach of many Argentine households. In short, $2,000 a month can offer a comfortable lifestyle for many expatriates or remote workers, but it should not automatically be described as luxury for everyone. The true picture depends on personal expectations, location, and the country's evolving economic conditions. Argentina is a country of remarkable contrasts, rich in history, culture, and resilience. Its story proves that even after decades of challenges, hope and renewal are always possible. If you enjoyed this documentary, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video. Your support helps us bring you more fascinating stories from around the world. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next journey.